So welcome back everyone. Today we are talking about WordPress plugins, and I'm going to share with you my 12 favorite WordPress plugins. Now, the first thing to say is that this list, I've chosen 12, but it could have been 3 or it could be 3,000. There are so many WordPress plugins, as we'll see shortly, available. And that's really a testament to how powerful and popular WordPress has become. It's the world's most popular content management system, which means basically it's the world's biggest way, or the most popular way of building websites. So if you use WordPress, as I do, it's core in my business. Pretty much everything is built on WordPress. Then you're in good company. It's a great place to be. There are other systems available as well, of course, and some of those are excellent as well. But one of the things that is great about WordPress, because it's so popular, is that a lot of third-party developers have spent time creating add-ons for them, either themes or plugins that we're focusing on today. So there are so many things that you can add and customize with your website. Now, before we get started, this is one of the areas that I've probably in my early days I fell into this trap, and I've certainly seen it elsewhere, is that people can get really excited about gadgets and tools, and they can start adding lots of different plugins to their site. It feels good to do that. I think you get a little endorphin rush every time you install a new plugin. But generally speaking, if you keep doing that and you end up with 20, 30, 40 different plugins, all that is just going to slow things down. It's going to reduce the efficiency of your site, so everything will load slower, and also you'll introduce potential conflicts between the plugins. All right, now any type of software anywhere in the world always has some bugs. It never works perfectly. So you can imagine, by starting to introduce different pieces of software in the form of plugins together, then you end up sooner or later with some kind of conflict. I've experienced that. You probably will. If you haven't already, you will in the future. It's usually pretty easy to solve, and it's a lot better than it used to be. I remember, if you go back sort of 6, 7, 8 years, it used to be a lot more, when WordPress was less developed, it was a bit more fragile. I think that's fair to say. Whereas today, in my experience, it's pretty rock solid. Fingers crossed, right? Hopefully all my sites won't crash this afternoon after I've said that and tempted fate. But that's basically the setup. So if you use WordPress, you're in a brilliant place. I do as well. It's core to my business. And there are a wonderful array of developments that you can add in. So let's switch over to shiny object syndrome. Chris says, yeah, absolutely. That's it in a nutshell. So let's go over to the presentation today. Let's have a look, and let me know if you're on live. Can you see the presentation now? Okay. And let's go over here. All right, brilliant, thank you. So look, you can see this. I just got this off this morning off wordpress.org. Extend your WordPress experience with 56,537 plugins. It'd be quite interesting, wouldn't it, if you actually tried to install all of them and see what happened. I mean, you probably get to, I don't know, 50 and everything would just crash probably. But the point is, there's a huge array, as we've said. Now, in this list of 12, I could include things like Thrive Architect, which is a plugin, or Thrive Leads, which is a plugin, or Elementor, which is another plugin. That's like an alternative really to Thrive Architect. I could talk about things like that, but I feel that I'd be selling you short if I did that, because we've talked about these things before in previous sessions, and if you've watched those, what my preferences are. WordPress theme for kind of branding sites is Divi, that I love. I absolutely love for sales pages and for conversion-based pages like sales pages, opt-in pages, webinar pages, and so on, Thrive Architect. And for opt-in forms that you can place anywhere on your site, then Thrive Leads. That's the basis of what I do, and that's my preference. I'd highly recommend that to you. Of course, there are other tools available. So I don't want to really repeat all that again in this list. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through some key plugins, which are a little bit more, some of you will probably have heard of some of them, but I hope that if you're watching this, there's at least one or maybe two that you've not been aware of before and that will really help you. That's the idea. So let's go on and get started. So the first one I want to share with you is called Postmark, and here's some screenshots out of my setup. What this does is it allows you to send transactional emails from Postmark servers instead of your own website. Now, this is really useful if you have customers that have registered for your members area, for example, to get access to their product. And let's say they forget their password. Well, of course, they'll go to the login screen, they'll click I've lost my password link, and they'll enter their email address, where a password reset link will be emailed to them. Now, normally, if you're using any kind of WordPress system, that will come from your website itself, which means it will come from, if you host like I do on SiteGround, which is a brilliant option, love SiteGround, but it will come from your SiteGround server. Now, as good as SiteGround is, or any hosting, even if it's VPS or dedicated, I've had both of those in the past, there's still a relatively low level of deliverability. Because for emails, okay, because there's just so much spam out there, and in my opinion, it's not only a pain, but it's also a bit unprofessional to have your site sending out password reset links that don't actually arrive. All right, you can imagine if we do this as well, don't we? We're logging into systems, we want to reset the password, and we never get the link back, right? Because it gets blocked by your email system or something like that. Or even if it goes to spam, some people won't look in their spam or junk folder. So we really want to avoid that. So you can do that with Postmark, and they have a service which you can sign up for. I think I pay like $10 a month for it, so it's very cheap. And that you can install, once your system's set up, you can install the WordPress plugin. I have that in all my sites. So my sites, my server, never ever send emails to anyone. The other important thing to underline is this is for transactional emails only. So it's for things like registration details, password reset emails, that kind of stuff. All right. Postmark will close your account down if you try and send any other kind of like a newsletter email or marketing or promotion or anything like that. Obviously that's understandable because they want to protect their servers and have them absolutely crystal clean, so the deliverability is superb. I've never seen a case where this doesn't work. It's absolutely brilliant. So what you can see, here's the setup in the plugin inside one of my sites, where basically it will still come from the email address rob@gainhighground.com, but it will go through, it will be sent from Postmark servers, which have great deliverability. And then when you get an email through, you can see it's Rob Cornish via pm.mtasv.net or whatever. That's the Postmark server. So that's the beauty of it. So any newsletters I send or promotions, that goes through my email system. I use ActiveCampaign. You might use MailChimp or ActiveCampaign's a great option, by the way, because it's actually got a very cheap entry-level service. It's a brilliant system. But whatever you use there, that's your email service. Any transactional emails, you go through Postmark. And then that way, your website never, ever, without exception, it never needs to send any emails at all. You solve the deliverability problems. So top plugin, that is really good. So Easy Updates Manager. So this goes back to security and just making sure everything's up to date. Sometimes there are problems. We all see it in the news. Sometimes there's the security risks or whatever. So things get updated. You don't want to have your site running up. You know, the current version is like 6 months old, right? You want to keep it updated as much as possible. If you have lots of sites like I do, then that can be hard because you have to log into each one and manually update them. So something like this, and this is not the only game in town. There's another one that I've used in the past called Advanced Automatic Updates, another plugin which you can use, and basically it just always keeps things up to date. So that's, whether you use this specific one or something like it, I'd recommend it. All right, so Pretty Links is number 3. So this is where you can do essentially sort of redirection, all right, or they call them cloaked links, which is a little bit sinister, but it's just a general way of making your link look a bit prettier. So let's say you want to promote a product, and you can create a link that people can go to from your site. So it might be yoursite.com/get this amazing product. And when people go to that link, it then redirects them through your affiliate link into the actual product. You can use it for your own products as well. If you wanted to have, so I've done promotions like it will say go to gainhigherground.com /I want this, for example, and then that can redirect them to a shopping cart or something else. So you can do lots of other things, but that's the general gist of it. Pretty Links is one option. There are other tools available, other plugin variations, but that's a good one to have. Akismet. Now, unless you just shut off all the comments on your blog, which you can do, I have a lot of sites that don't have blogs and they don't use WordPress posts at all. They only use WordPress pages. But unless you're in that situation, then you cannot live without this, really, because the amount of spam on blog comments is huge. I've got no idea why, because I would think it has zero benefit to anyone, to the spammers. I mean, it's just crazy, but you know, that's what people do. So this is just, I took this screenshot from my site this morning, and it's just amazing, you know, how much is getting blocked. So, you know, in the past 6 months, nearly 7,000 spam comments are blocked. It's crazy. And most of that is probably just robots. You know, it's not actually people, it's just robots going around trying to post junk comments. So this is just absolute no-brainer. So the next one, and this is really applicable in certain situations. I wouldn't recommend, I use the paid version of this. I wouldn't really recommend that you need to get that, but it's great for putting forms on your site. So for example, what I have in my coaching area for private coaching clients is a form that says submit your questions for the next live webinar session. So when people are logged in, they can literally just type in a message, hit send, and that comes through. It's logged in the system, goes into a special folder in my Gmail account and everything, and it just works. People and the members don't need to put in their email or anything like that, because you know that information is already there because they're logged in. So it's a really nice system. It can do a lot more than that as well. You can do all sorts of stuff, including contact forms. It's probably overkill for contact forms, and of course there are other alternatives as well. A classic one for contact forms is Contact Form 7, which is completely free. I'd recommend that. And there's another one called Everest Forms, which is also free. Maybe check that out. So you don't really have to pay for Gravity Forms unless you really think you need it. Like I said, I pay, but I can't really recommend that. Certainly, it's more of a specialist thing. But it's still very good, which is why it's in the list. Now, easy is going to be difficult to say. Easy HTTPS SSL redirection, this one. And what this does is just make sure that always, every page on your site always goes to the secure SSL connection. All right. So there's two types of connections. When I first started online, it was always HTTP, which is an unsecured connection. Apart from things like shopping carts, where you're actually paying for goods, and that was obviously secure. But nowadays, it's expected by default that you should have HTTPS. If you don't, it's bad for you, really, because as my understanding is, I don't do a lot of SEO, but Google won't look on that favourably, so you'll probably go down in the rankings. Certainly when people turn up, some people will be perturbed and think, oh, it's not secure. And browsers increasingly will point this out to users as well. So they'll put a thing up in the top left by the address saying not secure. So obviously you don't want that anywhere on your site. Now, SSL is free. You don't have to pay for it anymore. In fact, I have a video, I think you'll find it on the YouTube channel, where I show you how to apply it to your sites for SiteGround, for example. But other hosting companies should provide that. Always check before you sign up with them. And that basically is just very, very easy, right? So you just go in, check a few boxes, and it should work. You can clear your cache and test everything, and everything should be fine. Wordfence Security. So this is one of several security plugins that you can get. There was a period a few years ago when WordPress seemed to get hacked all the time. I think there was a fundamental flaw in it or something, and there was a lot of write-ups and information about it. I got hacked as well. Loads of the front pages of my sites had just changed, been taken over, saying you have been hacked. It's one of those things that you just don't want to sit down. You sit down, you want to do some work, and you open your site and it looks like that, and you have to spend the next day or two trying to unpick it and get some help to clear it. So WordPress on its own, I believe, I'm absolutely not a security expert at all, but in my experience seems to be pretty solid and quite secure. But something like this can just go the extra mile in keeping things extra, really batten down the hatches and close off any loopholes. So you can check this out. You can probably see at the bottom 3 million active installs. So it's very, very popular one. There are paid versions of Wordfence as well, and there are other alternatives. But security plugins, something you might like to consider. Tony says he lost 6 sites back then to that. Yeah, so many people got affected. They really did. And remember that with security, it's very easy to think, at the time you might have people thought, oh, it's WordPress or whatever. And there probably was some flaws in WordPress which allowed that to happen at the time. But it's anything, right? Every couple of months, at least, there's a story in the newspaper or that you hear about on the news where some big company, like an airline or something, or a travel company, they've been hacked and all their data's been gone. So, and they've got teams of people, right, looking after it. So it's not just about, I think WordPress is probably as secure as anything, really, from a layman's perspective. But it's always good to think about what you're doing, keep stuff updated, like we talked about. Don't use more plugins than you need to. that probably introduces some insecurities if you're using a plugin which doesn't quite, is not doing what it should do. So just keep everything slim, keep everything updated, consider a security plugin. That's best practice. Now, number 8 is a very simple one, duplicate post, but it's so handy. It adds a little clone icon, you can see down here, to the page. If you go to WordPress and pages or WordPress and posts, and you can just duplicate the post. So instead of starting from scratch every time, often I just copy an existing page and then modify it. So duplicate post is super simple, but it's quite a handy thing, little productivity booster, I suppose. Number 9, search exclude. Now this is interesting because not many people know that by default pretty much all the pages or all the public pages in WordPress are searchable. So that means, if you think about it, that when you've got something like, say, a thank you page or a download page where you've got stuff that you want to give to people after they've entered their email and signed up for your list, well, that's all. You can block the search engines on that, okay? So you can do a no index tag, put it in there so Google can't find it and Google won't list it. Fine. But people could still find it in the search results on your site. Okay, and you can go to any WordPress site that hasn't locked it down and do a little search. I think you do, so the site name, $S equals in your address bar, and you can put in a search term and you'll get some results back. So, and obviously a lot of sites have a search icon as well, or a search bar where you can get the same thing. So it's, what you want to do is just make sure that the results reflect how you want to, what you want to present to people who search, and not include things that are on the back end or test pages or other pages that you're working on, or download pages and that kind of stuff. So I actually don't use this plugin because I do it in a different way in my theme with some code. But to be honest, if I was starting again, I'd probably just use this. And all it does is on the post, you can see where you publish, exclude from search results. So any page or post, you can just check that, and then that will not come up in the standard WordPress search. All right, number 10 now, Wishlist Member. So it's a difficult one. I nearly didn't include this because Wishlist Member is a funny one, because when I started kind of 2011, I was looking at setting up a continuity program, recurring billing continuity, and I was trying to decide what I should use and so on. I actually went to America to a conference to talk to people and see different companies presenting, and I ended up using both, right, of the main options I was looking at. I used MemberGate, which is rock solid, but it's kind of built on an old platform now, so it's a legacy system, so you wouldn't really use that for a new project now, but I still run a MemberGate site. And then the other one, which was really up and coming and everyone was excited about, was Wishlist. And Wishlist got super popular. There's loads of integrations for it, so pretty much if you use any shopping cart, for example, they will integrate automatically with Wishlist. That's great. And it was great. I felt, being honest, it plateaued and kind of, there's some, the original founder, Stu McLaren, sold out, I think, and so on. And I just, my opinion, I think the development kind of plateaued for a while. Recently, they've done an upgrade, which is great. So maybe that's taking off again. That's just my personal kind of view, right? And everyone's got their own opinion. But it's still a great option to use. I also use, as well as MemberGate, I also use MemberMouse as well. So I'm using three different membership systems actually, because I've got different projects and different products and so on. But if you're just choosing one, Wishlist is something to consider. I would recommend that. And one of the key things is it integrates into other systems. There are free membership plugins that you can get, which are probably great, but then it's going to be it's probably hard to get them to talk to other systems that you want. So I think Wishlist definitely deserves a place in this list, and that's why I've brought it here to show you. Chris says, have you tried Active Member 360? No, I haven't. I haven't tried that. There are a lot of, I think it's quite crowded. I think the membership kind of plugin area is quite crowded now with a lot of different options. It's not as crowded as page builders, which is super competitive, right? I mean, I would hate to go into that market unless you had a few $100,000 just to deploy on building a great system, because it's so competitive, which is brilliant for us because it just makes everything better, right? And there's more cost competition as well, and it's all good. But I think for membership sites, it's a bit more of a sleepy area, I think. Certainly for like MemberMouse, which is great. MemberMouse is good, but they don't seem to develop many new features, to be honest. All right, it's fine, but I've not noticed anything major at all since I came on. And that's why when I recommend things, most of the stuff that I really recommend has big continual development stuff. Wishlist stalled, I think, for a while, but it's picked up. Thrive Architect is unbelievable. They're always doing enhancements, new features, refining stuff. They're just all the time. Same as Thrivecart, different company, similar name but different company, and their progress of development. And as an existing user, you just get everything. You get all the upgrades for free. So that's what I like. Is that's a key aspect for me from all my recommendations, which are only based. All my recommendations are just stuff that I use. That's it. That's basically it, really. And the development improvements, continuous development is a really major factor, because things move on so quickly on the internet. And if they're just kind of being reactive and just, something's changed, right, we better fix that, and we'll get up to speed with this new protocol that's so on. If they're not ahead of the curve, then over time they fall quite far behind. It's by, he said Active Member 360, it's by Active Campaign, and you can't use Active Member 360 without it. Okay, not sure. Well, I use Active Campaign, but there's so many, honestly, there's so many. Yeah, so let's have a look. So Tom, you say you have to add updates for Thrive Architect 2 to 3 times a month. 2 to 3 times a month. Yeah, that's about right for Thrive Architect. Yeah, it's great. All right, and some things are tiny, of course. That's fine. There's always bugs in any system, so they're very good at fixing bugs. In fact, I found a couple of bugs myself. Gone to their support, and they're just proactive, and that's all I ask, right? You'll never get a perfect system out of the box, but as long as they're developing stuff, they want to hear from you, they fix it, communication's good, you're in a good place. And that's because, remember, you're building, with all of this stuff, you're building your whole business around it. So if you're just basing stuff on like, this is like $50 instead of $80, I'll go with the $50, and that's your criteria, or you just go for a free project or something, there's a shiny object and you go for this because you like the bonuses or something like that. That's no good with this kind of stuff. You've got to, use the tools for your infrastructure that are going to have longevity and that are not going to create you a burden in the future because they lag too far behind, they don't have the updates, they haven't got the development or the support slow. So that's something that's the biggest tip I can give you with tools. So what we got here, Superfly menu. Now I keep saying this with everyone, don't I? But there are other options. There's lots of actually really cool menu options. I use this particular one. There's another one I use for another site in CopyLab, my CopyLab product. But this one I use for my main coaching area. So you can see that here's just a little screenshot of the menu, and these all expand out, and you can put your icons in. You can change it however you want it, really. This is just my implementation. Superfly, I think it's available, this one, on Code Canyon, which is another site that is pretty cool for lots of nice premium plugins. So I don't know how much it is. It's like $100 or something, or maybe even less than that. But it's really good. So Superfly, and this is a really good one. All right, and it's the only one probably, maybe, that you only want to use every so often. So I run this every 3 or 4 months, and it doesn't matter how clean you are in creating your pages and your links, there's always going to be broken ones because you're linking out to other sites over which you have no control. So some of them will change stuff, your link will break, some of them will just disappear off the web. Obviously your link will break there. And even internally, when you link to other bits of content, you can when you change stuff, you can have unexpected consequences. You've forgotten that you've made a link to one place and you change it and it breaks and so on. So this is a great plugin that you can just install. It's free. Click go. It takes a while and it will just chug through all of the links on your site that it can find, and it will report any that go dead, including blog post links as well. So if people, I don't do a lot of my blog, really, just a couple of posts a year probably, but there's quite a lot of comments from different people over time. But of course they put their website in, and that was like, I don't know, 3 years ago or whenever. Their website's disappeared and there's a broken link. So it catches all of those and then gives you an option whether you want to just unlink or delete the link and so on. Really good. But I suspect it's quite high workload on the server. All right. So I don't have this running all the time. You can just have it on all the time and it will report whenever there's a broken link. But I don't do that. I just install it, run it, clean everything up, and then deactivate it and delete it. And that's it. So it's gone again. And then I'll do the same process in 3 or 4 months. Like we said at the start, I don't want any plugins on my sites that I don't have to. Keep everything really slim, really tight. So, okay. ActiveCampaign currently has an automation bug. Many contacts get stuck in wait step. Escalated for fix. Okay. Yeah, I haven't noticed that. I've used ActiveCampaign. I use it all the time, every day, but I haven't noticed that. Like I say, you're absolutely right, Lee. Any system, doesn't matter what it is, they all have bugs, right? Because things change beyond their control. There's unintended consequences. There's code clashes. I don't know, right? It's just, that's the way it is. But that's fine. That doesn't stress me out. It shouldn't stress you out as well. So let's go on and look at this. Instantly over it. So what's all this about? Well, this goes back, like we say, I think we're in this is number 19, session 19 been doing 2 a week consistently. We're on session 19, and in every session without fail we talk about this foundational mindset and productivity system that you've got, which supports you. You're standing on top of it, so if it's a bit rocky or it's going to slip, you're going to come down with it. And this is another really good tip that I do all the time, and it's not particularly to do with business, although it can apply there when you're building websites or whatever you're doing in your online business, but is in your personal life as well. So when something goes wrong, like an everyday thing that goes wrong, try and get into the habit of being instantly over it. I'll give you an example. I'll give you 2 examples. I can remember probably, 6-7 months ago, I drove my daughter to the swimming baths, okay, which is quite a good drive. It's a decent drive. So to go into town and all of that, and you go through the traffic up to the swimming baths, and we got there, and I'd forgotten her swimming kit. All right, and what can happen if you do so that's what I mean by an everyday glitch, right? Something that just a mistake, right? So obviously I'm not talking about serious stuff here, right? But just everyday little things. Now, if you look at that kind of situation, you could let that absolutely ruin your day. You'd be so annoyed with yourself. Oh, how can I do this? Right, I've got to go back now. It's going to be late for dinner, and it's going to have knock-on consequences. And oh dear, and you could literally go to bed, 12 hours later or whatever it is, and be still thinking about it and annoyed and think, oh, I've had a bad day today. I hope tomorrow's better. That's what you could do. But instead, as soon as you realise what you've done, go, oh, I'm over it. Consciously say that to yourself. And then any residual annoyance that comes back, you just go, no, I'm not interested. I'm over it. And just smile and go back for the swimming bag and come back to the pool, and everything's okay. Another example is today. This is the last mistake I've made, is that I sent out this morning an email with the wrong link. So it was linking to the previous session and not this live scheduled session. And I realised and thought, oh well, never mind, over it. Within 2 seconds, as fast as you can think, I'm over it, be over it. Now this takes practice. With all of these things, you can remember it and think, oh, that's good, but it will take practice. It's not going to happen because you're so in the habit, or probably you're so in the habit of being annoyed and letting that creep in. But all of that, there's no upside to being annoyed, right? It's not going to help you in the future. Trying to learn from your mistakes will, but you don't need annoyance for that or frustration. So just get rid of it, all right? And the great thing about this is that, remember, these are everyday mistakes and errors. Whatever. There's 100 examples, right? I've given you 2. You can probably think of some from your own experience. But they're everyday things, so they don't matter anyway, right? So this is not a big hurdle to get over, although it will require practice. But just remember this next time something goes wrong, because it will, right? That's not the last time I forget the swimming bag, or that I put the wrong link in the email, right? I rarely do that. I very rarely do it. But it happened today. Instantly over it and move on. And this, like with all of these things, kind of gives you a new philosophy, a new way of thinking about the world. Tiny little things, and it just firms up that solid foundation. So please do like this video. I'd really appreciate that. Do join us in the Facebook group as well. I'll certainly do a little update probably tomorrow before the weekend. We did a good one last week, which is still there. Obviously, if you scroll down in the Facebook group, it's all about refunds, dealing with difficult customers, or repeat serial refunders, if you like, my typical refund rate, all of that kind of stuff. And I'm sure I can share a few more little insights like that as we go forward. So that's all in the Facebook group. All the previous episodes are on the link in the description as well. And the links I'll put in the from this session in the description. So that's it for this session. That's it for this week. We will be back next week as well. So watch out on the email. I'll send out an email. If you're not on my email list, you can get on it on the resource page, link in the description. And until then, have a brilliant end to the week, brilliant weekend. We'll talk soon. All right, take care for now.